I'm here with my pal Aiko, and we are at the end of the session. This is Aiko's roadmap to success. She has a nice laid-back energy, which we really like, but she is very indicative of Shiba Inu, the dogs I like to call the most cat-like dog there is. So we worked on a lot of different things. I think the big problem here is the dog kind of sees itself as having the same authority as the adults. Now we have a little baby that's been added to the family. Dog is fine with the baby except for when there's sounds that are triggers that set Aiko off. So one of the things we did was we did a little counter conditioning, and that's going to be something we'd like to do for all of the sounds that trigger Aiko. So if it's clapping, if it's the beard trimmer cleaning, self-cleaning cycle, the microwave, the fire alarm, all these things that are going on, we want to recreate. Make sure when you're doing the counter conditioning, we're delivering the treat first. As soon as the dog starts chewing, then we have the stimulus going on, the clapping, for example, and then the clapping stops before the dog stops finishing chewing the treat. We're going to do the same thing with people outside or whatever. We just have to be able to control it. Now for the vacuum cleaner is hard for a lot of dogs. So what we would maybe do is break that down into individual steps by themselves. So the first step is just hearing the vacuum cleaner without seeing it. So maybe we have the dog in the kitchen, and we have somebody way over here with the vacuum cleaner, and we do it on the phone. We deliver the treat. As soon as the dog starts chewing the treat, we turn the vacuum cleaner just on and off, so it's only on for half of a second. And then maybe we do it, we finish chewing the treat, then we do the second one, maybe now a second. So we're gradually going to get it going until we can have the dog chewing it the whole time, and there's no problem. Then we would gradually bring the vacuum cleaner closer and closer to the dog, but again, we have to do it very slowly. If the dog reacts and it looks away from the treat or starts lunging, we push too far too fast. You don't have to have your dog in a sit or on a leash to do counter conditioning. I like to do it for two reasons. It becomes my litmus test. If I put the treat in front of the dog's nose and it sticks its nose around it, then it's telling me that I'm getting close to my breaking point. If I'm starting the exercise with the dog in a sit, and then we turn the stimulus on and the dog stands up, it's another indication that we're reaching the breaking point. Always end on a good one. If you're getting frustrated, make sure you stop before you get frustrated, because the dog will know you're frustrated. We want it to be a positive experience. If we do end up needing to use the muzzle just to test to see if the dog is comfortable with that stimulus and no longer charging the child, remember, we're going to hold the muzzle, and we're going to basically do what the guardians have already done. We're going to use lunch meat. And first we're going to have the piece of lunch meat hanging half in and half off of the muzzle. This is a basket muzzle, not a wrap muzzle. And then let the dog come over and take it and walk away. Take it, walk away. Do that about 10, 15 times one day, not in a row throughout the day. Next day we have it where just the lunch meat is just inside of the muzzle, and the dog has to stick its snout in to get it. The next day, when it sticks its snout in to get it, once it gets it, we're going to push it up and hold it on the dog's nose, but we're going to just do it like this and off. Just off immediately the first time. Then 2 seconds, then 3 seconds. And we're going to keep on working up. The idea is we want the dog to associate the muzzle with getting these really high value treats. When I do get to the point where I'm putting it on the dog, then when I take it off, I give them another treat immediately afterwards. And again, keep these in very short little bursts spaced throughout the day. Once we can actually attach it, the next day I would actually attach it and then detach it right away. Then attach it and leave it on for a couple seconds. Again, the same process. Once we get to that point where we're doing that, we want to have the muzzle on at normal times during the day when nothing bad is going on, there's no stimulus and there's no trigger, so the dog doesn't associate when the muzzle goes on something bad is happening. We're going to start asking the dog to sit or to lay down before we give it a treat. Such a soft mouth. We're going to also use passive training. So Aiko's not very good at the come. So every time the dog comes up to us, we're going to reach over and we're going to pet her and say the word come. Whenever possible, we want to try to pet her under her chin. She's kind of fighting me on it now a little bit. We want to create that nose up orientation. A proud dog has his nose in the air. An insecure dog has his head down. Now she is a Shiba. She's going to be willful, and that's part of the breed, but that's part of the reason why you have such character, right? Okay, let me see. For feeding, we're going to make sure that the human is eating first. We're going to change our release word from okay to something else, because okay is just way too common a word to use. The human's going to put the food down, then the human is going to eat 5 or more bites of something, or a real meal, then give the dog permission to eat its meal. And I would say feast or whatever the command word when the dog takes the first bite, so eventually we can give the dog a command. As soon as the dog leaves the area, goes longer than a foot away from where the food is, we pick up the food, dump it out of the bowl, put the empty bowl back down. We can keep the food if we have that persuasion, but we're going to put the empty bowl back down. So this way the dog sees as soon as I move away from the bowl, the food goes away. And this way we don't have raw chicken because you're on a raw diet, probably not for long. But we don't have the dog dragging food around because we have a little baby. I'd also like to incorporate a dog, a baby gate that the dog can go through that the baby can't go through. And the way we're going to teach the dog to do this is just the same way we did for the dog bed. We're going to take a treat, let the dog smell it. We're going to toss it through the gate so the dog can get through, but the baby can't. When the dog goes through, when it touches it with its lips, we're going to say whatever the command word is. So come up with a unique command word to go through there. I would have a unique command word for this dog bed and a unique command for the other dog bed. So every time I toss a treat over there and the dog touches it with its lips, we're going to say Venice for this one. And then the first way we do it is we toss it, let us see it, toss it. Now again, we'd like to get a white towel for that because dogs are colorblind, and that towel is going to be a little bit hard for them to, kennel or the dog bed is going to be a little bit hard for them to see. We want them to be able to recognize there's a treat there and go over and get it, and we just observe, and when the dog gets it, we're going to say the dog's name. Let me see what else. We are going to get the dog a little bit more exercise. I'd like to see the dog going on a walk, preferably early in the day. If the dog, something's going to happen and the baby's going to be over with maybe another baby or something that's going to set the dog on edge, or we're watching a basketball game or something where we're going to be clapping or doing a trigger that the dog's going to respond to, we can put the dog in a position to succeed by getting a lot of exercise early. I know that we were able to take it to a doggy daycare when he went out of town. If that's far away, that might not be an option, but we might want to look into a doggy daycare and try one out and see if she can actually, because the social interaction and problem solving is going to be really beneficial for her. Let's see what else. I think that's just about it for you. And then we're going to practice the door exercise. So make sure that the guardians call or text each other before they're on their way home. Remember, we're going to use the escalating consequences to disagree. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the hiss. We're going to hiss one time per incident, and we're going to match the intensity of our hiss with the dog's energy, always meeting or slightly exceeding it. And we're going to do that to warn the dog before it does the wrong thing. The second thing we're going to do, a second consequence, is to stand up abruptly and turn to face the dog. Remember, when you stand up, your authority goes whatever direction your belly button is pointed at. Your dog is going to back up and it's going to move away to the side to see if you're talking to it. So make sure you pivot and wait for the dog to be stationary. As soon as the dog is stationary, take a sudden step backwards. That's a conversation. It lets the dog know, because you stopped moving, I lowered my guard a little bit. The third consequence is we're going to march directly at the dog until the dog turns sideways to us or greater. At that point, we stop. We go down to the second consequence and we pivot and we wait for the dog to be stationary. Again, when the dog sits or lays down, we're going to take a big step backwards so that the dog understands what we're trying to say. We're going to use those escalating consequences when we're feeding the dog and when we're answering the door. And we're also going to establish a temporary boundary around the kitchen when we're preparing food, or around the table over there when we're eating food. Remember, we're going to look for rules that we can incorporate. One of the rules is you're not going to be allowed on the couch anymore, buddy. At least for a short period of time, so the dog sees a literal distinction between human and dog. When the baby is crying, we'd like to give the dog a treat. When a baby is moving around, we give the dog a treat. We want the dog to create positive association, so we're going to use as much positive association as we can so that it has a good perception of the baby. A good idea would be to get a stuffed animal, a stuffed Shiba Inu that the baby can have. This way the baby can touch it and grab its ears and all the places that it wants to grab without the dog. Now, it wouldn't be a bad idea for you to actually help with the baby with the doll. Hey, let's not touch the dog's tail. I mean, right now the baby's too small. When we get the baby older, we can start actually using that, and that can help. When we get to the point where we want to test the dog, we're either going to have the dog tethered and make sure that if the dog lunges towards the baby, which she's only done twice, so I don't think this is an aggressive dog at all. I think she's just frustrated a little bit. But we're going to tether it, and so the dog will not be able to get to the baby, so the humans can feel comfortable and we know that everyone stays safe. We can also, the next step would be to use the muzzle so the dog can be free, but if it did get to the baby, it couldn't do anything. Now that might be a little bit more traumatic if the dog happens to do that. For the baby, I would say. However, if we do the counter conditioning the way that she responded, I don't think you're going to have any problem with it. And I think as the baby gets a little bit older, these problems are not going to repeat themselves. We just would rather be safe than sorry, and the guardians are doing a good job of being proactive. Well, what do you say? Are you done? She's like, I think she's pouting a little bit because I'm not letting you move around, are you? All right, well, how about one more? Let's get a nose up orientation. There you go. Whenever possible, try to pet the dog under the chin so we can facilitate that nose up orientation. Well, I had a lot of fun here today, and hopefully you listened and the guardians picked up a lot of good steps. If not, make sure you go give me a shout or call me. I'm available to you whenever. This is the roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.